Elena Poptodorova. She was twice the ambassador of Bulgaria to the U.S. and she helped foment, is that the right word? She helped um, organize the NATO accession. So she's a very important political figure, and we're talking today about migration. So thank you for taking the interview, first of all.
Of
It's a
course.
great honor. Um, and yeah, my goal here is just to hear, a perspective of on the levels of politics, how, migration is tackled and conceptualized. So first, just do you think migrants should be, from the eastern border, should be invited in? How, to what degree? And if they're not staying in Bulgaria, as many of them move on to the EU, how would you feel about that?
Now we have different country situations
Yeah.
within Europe,
Mm-hmm.
which is one more reason for member states to take different approach.
Uh-huh.
You've got Hungary, um, you have Germany,
Mm-hmm.
so you have two kind of extreme attitudes, not
Yeah.
extreme but
Uh-huh.
distinctly different attitudes to migration. I think that it's very much a conceptual difference.
Mm-hmm.
What what used to be old Europe tends to be more open, probably on the basis of previous migrants and immigrants. I'm afraid that, including Chancellor Merkel and other Western leaders, they kind of thought migration more or less equals immigration.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the case at all. Europe was caught unprepared for this large wave, these large flows of migrants, of refugees who crossed over. One of the big problems is that it's a mix of categories. You have um, the real refugees from Syria, but you also have the migrants who are just looking for better opportunities in life. Oftentimes they would like um, to act as refugees,
Yes.
what they're not. In the case of Bulgaria, we've been spared because we are not part of the Schengen space, so they cannot move freely from Bulgaria onward. Many of them didn't know that, so they were
Yeah.
thinking and hoping that once they crossed a Bulgarian border, the Bulgarian border, they can then just
They're in Europe,
proceed
yeah.
undisturbed, which is not the case. This is why we have a relatively smaller number of migrants, and the big flows go through Greece, Macedonia, Italy. Italy is also flooded with migrants. And that's why countries take different approaches. One thing which is it is unfortunate, but I also think inevitable, is a change in the entire security concept, national security concept, with regards to migrants. It can wait. In the sense that very massive inflow of migrants practically resulted in a boost of nationalism, sometimes called patriotism, but the difference may be too thin.
It's a thin cut.
Right.
It's what angle you look at it from.
Depends how you try to explain it. But all nationalists resort to patriotic vocabulary when they want to
Yeah.
explain themselves and make themselves more kind of marketable
Yeah.
on the political scene. And this is how nationalistic parties, which were relatively kind of modest in
Marginal,
terms of
yeah.
popular support, now got very high up in the polls.
So you're bringing me to one of my questions, which I think is the most important question that I would give you, is have you seen political rhetoric? Or maybe I interrupted you, but one of the questions that and this follows up on it, is how have you seen these last 5 years with this large wave of migrants? How have you seen political rhetoric altered? I mean, I know that you currently aren't seeking elected post, and as ambassador you were appointed. But have you seen maybe some of your associates that they have to maybe change their rhetoric to be able to,
Of course.
upkeep their.
This is what made many analysts speak of the end of liberal democracy.
Mhm.
In the 90s, it was liberal democracy what we were all looking at and
Interesting.
hoping to introduce in terms of democratic norms, democratic legislation, and also democratic patterns of behavior,
Mhm.
public behavior and political behavior. Those were the years when I was a member of parliament, all through 1990 through 2001. And now the vocabulary is very different. And what we didn't, or I didn't expect to happen is this very severe cultural clash. I believe that we should be calling the spade a spade. We are dealing with a process, a phenomenon which will bring about many more implications and more developments, both within the nations, within the countries, but also on a European scale. America is well protected, and it has always been in a way because of a very strict system of selecting immigrants. America has never faced such a massive flow of migrants or immigrants, whatever you. No, there is a difference, as I said.
Yes.
Immigrants are the individuals. Migrants are the whole kind of
Mhm. Group.
large groups of people moving from one geographic region to another. So basically, Europe is the one that suffers the consequences. And as a result of this, the vocabulary changed, national security and national sovereignty came higher up
Mhm.
in the political agenda.
Mhm.
And this is the big problem. How do we carry out further European integration if the nation state has come up again as the strongest virtue of a government, of a political class?
Yes, because it's a nation state conceptualization we
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
And even in America, even
And
though we're
it's,
not
yeah.
really traditionally, we can justify ourselves not being a nation state, we still
Yeah.
think of ourselves as one. So.
True, but what's happening is that brings about this cultural clash
Uh-huh.
because obviously these are basically two very different cultures,
Yes.
and we must talk about that. There is the
Yeah.
Christian culture, the, I would say Protestant in many cases,
Mhm.
Anglo-Saxon, that has brought about this coveted lifestyle, which all these people
Mhm.
want to enjoy, and this is why they come our way. Um, but this is the big concept, the Christian, so to say,
Mhm.
world. And here we have the different Muslim world, which
Mhm.
wants to preserve itself, but somehow to preserve it in a Christian environment.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big challenge.
That is.
I know we want to all of us want to be politically correct. We don't want to speak of that kind of clash, but it does exist,
Yeah.
and it is even more acute at lower, less visible levels. If you may have all the right language on the
Yeah.
political level, and you have it. But when you go deeper down
Mhm.
to groups and communities which are not necessarily on
Mhm.
TV and on radio daily, you
Mhm.
see a much different
And
situation.
that's why in this project, I go to both politicians and
Right,
people because it's
right.
it's a different rhetoric. I just want to quickly interrupt. So, this discussion we just had, about
Yeah.
Christian Muslim society, on the
Yeah.
record or off the record, because I feel that.
Uh,
However you feel.
I think it can be on
Okay,
the
so
record.
everything so far is on the
Yeah,
record. Good.
it's something
Dobre.
which I
You
easily
believe?
can share publicly.
Good. So then you again brought me to my next question, which is, do you think Bulgaria in particular, and what we were discussing about nation state, about this reaction, I mean, do you think some would argue in the U.S. for example that Bulgaria has in particularly had a very formidable nationalistic group here. I mean Salman Pasi, from what I got, believes that Bulgaria has no more of this nationalistic sector of its population than would other countries. Um,
Yeah, I would agree. It's not very different from the
uh-huh.
others. The question should is, or the answer should be different.
Uh-huh.
How important that share is.
Yeah.
Yes, Bulgaria is not different from other countries.
Mhm.
So what's happening? What's happening in all these countries? And as I say, uh, I think a lot needs to be done on the social level.
Mhm.
Uh, the political level is more or less predictable,
Mhm.
but the social level, the communal level,
Mhm.
that's education in
Yeah.
particular,
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
civic movements and civic groups that can explain to both sides that um, it takes a code of ethics to be observed as a shared recognition of that kind of ethics, which should both the host country and the host
Mhm.
community uh, uh, exercise and adhere to, but also the incoming groups.
So, in terms of your, if you would propose a plan, would you say you go with the the posse plan that was presented yesterday, or how do you
Well, the
feel?
PASI plan is very attractive. It has its own challenges, and
Mhm.
it cannot happen overnight.
Mhm.
So I would also go with some preparatory steps before
Yeah.
we go to the big thing, uh, by trying to pacify communities
Mhm.
on the grassroots level.
Interesting. Now, my last two questions. The first is, if we just look at local politicians, the EU, US, Russia, all these different actors, in the world, which ones do you think, by local politicians, I mean here in Bulgaria, which ones do you think have managed to approach migration better, worse, why? I mean, Russia's an interesting case. Most people, because I asked this question to everyone, and most people, tell me Russia doesn't have migrants, which, I mean, it has a formidable, group coming from Central Asia, and it has no, okay, I'm now sharing my perspective, which is, I should be.
People look for, as Solomon said in his presentation, people look for a better lifestyle. I'm not sure
Uh-huh.
they can get it as migrants in Russia, nor even in Bulgaria. The situation in Bulgaria is that it is in Europe, it's in the
Mhm.
EU, and this is what may be kind of a reason for
Mhm.
migrants to also come to my country. Now, while I'm talking of the importance of the cultural dimension, I know that we simply have to. There is no other way about it and around it. Um, we have to reinforce intelligence cooperation,
Mhm.
because you cannot expect just cultural methods to work. There should be proper intelligence work being done
Mhm.
to identify who are actually the people who are seeking
Mhm.
asylum or refuge or shelter, um, because while you have really many needy people trying to find a better place to live, there are also those who come with the specific intention in mind, and
Mhm.
these are the members of terrorist groups. But what's extremely dangerous is that you also have radicalization of individuals, the so-called lone wolves, and terrorism now has kind of atomized
Mhm.
itself in a way.
Yeah.
You have decentralized and atomized groups of two, three, four people who just uh, believe they're serving a lofty religious goal by
Mhm.
killing others in a terrorist act. And this is the homegrown terrorism. Again, what I would say, it has to be strong intelligence sharing
Mhm.
among the countries, and a lot of educational and cultural work done at the
Mhm.
same time.
Okay. And my last question would be, I think it's a bit different than from what other people ask, but I mean, just describe. Do you think? I mean, any other things you would describe? Personally, I usually ask, have people's perspectives changed on migration in the last 5 years? But in general, just how do you think Bulgarian society has been affected, just following as a conclusionary statement,
As a
in the
conclusionary
last five
statement, you
years?
had different attitudes. You've had cases when a small town or a village would just say we don't want migrants, we don't
Huh.
want anybody of these refugees
Mm-hmm.
in our town or in our community. And there are others that have accepted them. That's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you. My firm belief is that there must be a lot of groundwork done because
Mm-hmm.
this is a new phenomenon. Some people are scared just by watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
You then don't get much of an encouragement from what comes on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis from London or Paris or
Mm-hmm.
Manchester or other places or the Middle East for that
Mm-hmm.
matter. So when you listen about terrorist attacks continuously, an average person can only think of that kind of threat. So that's why I'm saying it is intelligence, it is also cultural and educational work.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Not at all.
I wish you have a safe trip back to
Thank you.
Sofia. It was
Thank you.
very nice getting to know you.